future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. You have turned into Dr. Judy WTF, which is What the Freud. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are here at the Universal Broadcasting Network in the heart of Hollywood, broadcasting live at the Sunset Gower Studios. Dr. Judy Rosenberg is in the house, and I am your host, Walt Lusk. We are going to do a pretty serious show tonight. We're a topic-driven show, and if you want the notes for the show or have comments or questions or queries, you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com, or you can pull us on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn, or, of course, here at UBN Radio. And later we're going to shrink that tune like we normally do. And, I forget, it's a call-in show as well. We're going to be dealing with anorexic and bulimia, which is a pretty heavy-duty issue, and Dr. Judy has treated both types of patients, and we've done, of course, done some research on it. And if you have an issue with it or know someone who has or is, we'd love to have you call in. Our number is area code 323-843-2826. And I want to start by saying that if you have any issues or challenges with this or other issues, you can actually reach us at the Psychological Healing Center. And Dr. Judy has a plethora of folks to help out. So,
yes, I'd like to start by saying thank you so much for being a listener.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate you tuning in. And for those of you who have issues with this particular topic or know people who have issues, please feel free to call in and get on the couch. And we're going to cover a lot of material from a mind map perspective and just a little bit about the mind map for those of you who are tuning in for the very first time. Is this okay with the volume? Yes, okay. So the mind map is a system that I created to track problems that we now see as symptoms. So in the case of this show, we're going to be talking about the symptoms of anorexia and bulimia, but every single symptom is born out of a disconnect, which I refer to initially as the mother-infant disconnect. So wherever we're disconnected from, we will form a reaction to the wound, and then we will encode that wound, and that wound will get triggered often in life and take us down into chaos defenses and eventually breakdowns. So if you would be so kind
if you want to see the mind map, for those of you that are listening, you can see it at www.drjudywtf.com, and it's here at B in its splendor for those who are streaming.
So the top part of the mind map represents the past and the encoding that happens along the course of development. And when we encode core beliefs, which is how we view ourselves, it comes from this human disconnect. It comes from some sort of a pain that then translates into I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not important enough, I'm not lovable enough. And when those feelings get triggered, you can see that what happens is that chaos, defense mechanisms, and then breakdowns occur. And in order for us to make therapeutic gain, what we need to do is go to the cause of the problem, dismantle the psychovirus, as I like to call it, and then help people reboot the system so that they can recause. And they can recause from a blank slate of health and reshuffle the entire outcome of their life.
It sounds really long and involved and sounds really complicated, but I'm here to tell you that there is only 9 panels in the mind map system, which means in a very rapid rate you can go through each panel and come out at the other end really amazingly much better off. And it's a very efficient and very effective form of therapy, and Dr. Judy isn't one to hang around and just listen to you babble about stuff. She really dives into the cause of the challenge pretty quick, like first session.
Because if you don't delve into the cause, Walt, as you know, then you're going to be doing a lot of symptom management and medication management, and everything is just going to be managed. And I'm not a fan of management because you can have a lifetime patient just managing people, and that's not what our philosophy is all about. We like to, as corny as it may sound, help people think like a shrink. And we have a really, really beautiful staff of people who work on various scale fees. And so I believe that we're going to have a call-in today from one of the people.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about this because this is the first time one of my staff members has
volunteered to
come on the show. So I'm really, really happy
So if you have an emotional ouch and or a wound, if you will, and you really want that wound to be clean and gone, then what you need to do is delve into the mind map. And that's what the Psychological Healing Center and the Mind Map and Dr. Judy and her staff are all about. Now, anorexic and bulimia, folks, there's literally 150,000 people a year die from eating disorders. Two of the major ones are anorexic and bulimia. And there are the two of them are similar, but they, of course, are different. And 50% of the people that have anorexic actually become bulimic.
Later in life.
Later in life, it's older. And parts of it really do take an absolute, amazingly challenging toll on your body, and you could die from this stuff. And up to 5 million people have experienced eating disorders of some form or another. So this is not a topic that's small or simple. And just to give you an idea of bulimics, for example, they're consuming at one point, because they kind of binge and purge, they're binging usually about 5,000 calories of food at least at one sitting, and try and do all that to try and delve into it. So
that's about a pound and a half's worth of weight gain.
Yeah, it's a lot of food. So I read some do up to 20,000 calories. That's like a lot. I mean, the average person, if they're really trying to lose weight, they're not going to eat any more than 2,000 or 2,500 calories in a whole day.
And so I was listening online yesterday to some other professionals and their opinion on this matter. And some people seem to feel that it's a biological disorder and that it has hereditary factors. I tend to lean away from genetically determined models just because I think that
the genetics is mentioned, but not heavily, although background does. And we had a call in and it disappeared. So we'll see if they call back.
We'll
I
wait.
just hit it. Yeah.
But I just wanted to say I lean away from the genetic model because even as I was listening to the other people's opinion, it became evident to me that, number one, they can't really find the gene code that specifies either disorder. It's not like they can find the gene for sickle cell anemia or something of the sort. Second of all, when we look at genetics, I look at psychogenetics, meaning that this is multi-generational. So if mom or dad had these behaviors, then we will blueprint off of these behaviors. And even if they didn't have these behaviors, if they have the dynamics that create the injuries that then manifest as these behaviors, that's really what we want to look at, because that is malleable. That's something that we can take under therapeutic consideration. We can start dismantling systems that don't work for us. Genetics are a little bit harder to manage, especially in the psychotherapeutic realm. They're impossible to manage.
They are. I was going to say the origin of this show actually is from an article that Dr. Judy wrote in People magazine entitled The Perception of Unrealistic Body Images in Video Games and Their Effect on Eating Disorders. And so that came out, and did it already come out?
It already
came out in
if
People
you
magazine.
want to Google it, it's in People magazine. I'm going to be posting my new website in the next few days.
Yeah.
So please check it out. And please also like us on Facebook.
Yeah, we got a bunch of likes on Facebook, so
we get
thank
happy
you.
about that.
Absolutely.
And comment if there's anything that you'd like us to do differently, or if there are particular topics that you want us to cover, or certain tunes that you want us to shrink, because we do that every episode.
show.
We shrink a tune relevant to the
show.
topic. Please talk to us, communication, and we will definitely take your requests
Oh,
very
absolutely.
seriously.
We elect a lot of the shows that we do are actually for suggestions from folks and fans.
Right.
But let's couple this video games with the characteristics of what communicate young adults. When slim, perfectionistic heroes appear as strong, beautiful, powerful characters, the message is you have to be slim and beautiful to be powerful.
Right.
Can you see how this subliminal message can trigger the negative core beliefs in young adults, and they act out? And many times they're acting out as a result of, trying to be thin and get thin rather rapidly, or stay thin unrealistically with bulimia and anorexic.
And let me elaborate what a core belief is. A core belief is something that starts off as a pre-verbal imprint, and then as people develop cognitively, it becomes a kind of a verbal message, but it's not always very conscious. So oftentimes when we at the Psychological Healing Center do therapy, we uncover the core belief by presenting people with various core beliefs, and then when we hit upon the core belief that really has been running the show and dismantling the person, then we'll see a pretty big reaction in that person, and then we'll know that that is the Achilles heel emotional button that we need to attend to.
I wanted to, so we know we're on the same page, just take a little bit definition of what anorexic and bulimia is. Anorexic and bulimia are the most common clinically recognized eating disorders. Those with anorexic have tendency to skip meals, adapt highly restrictive and unhealthy diets, obsess over thinness and food, and persist abnormal eating habits and rituals.
Mm-hmm.
Bulimia presents itself in the form of binging or overeating, following by purging, often either vomiting or using laxatives or other diuretics,
Mm-hmm.
which is a kind of water pill. For a person who suffers from both disorders simultaneously, one may also suffer from body dysphoria, and they see herself or himself as, quote, fat, even when extremely underweight. This hits women way, way more than men. At its best, it hits maybe 10 to 15% of men. So it's no clear cure for either disorder.
Which makes a lot of sense, because most of the pressure is on women to look beautiful, to have slim bodies and perfect noses and well-endowed chests and full lips and on and on and on and on. We've done some shows on plastic surgery. We did one last episode on plastic surgery, and this all falls under body dysmorphic, meaning that there's a distortion in the way that people perceive themselves, and this distortion is based on what I call a cracked lens of perception. So how does the lens of perception, self-perception start? Well, it gets somehow bent out of shape at the causal level. And the causal...
Way back in the
way
beginning.
back in the day, when mom and dad or caregiver or whoever imprints and blueprints these messages like, you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, or you're not
worthy.
lovable. And they don't have to be words, because actions speak volumes.
Absolutely.
So if a child is ignored, right, what's that child encoding? I'm not important. If a child is abused, what's that child encoding? I'm not safe.
And abuse is a lot of it. And as we say, childhood is a hostage situation. And we've got our caller back. It's Anna.
Great.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi.
Anna. Good morning. Greetings and salutations. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Welcome. I'm so glad to have you on air. And really, Anna, you're the first of the staff members who is on our show.
Has
and
ventured out to make a phone call to the
thank
show.
you. And
It is my honor. Thank you, boss.
And
Walt.
Anna is a psychological assistant at the Psychological Healing Center and has a phenomenally successful practice and growing.
yes, she does. And she is studying to obtain her PhD and licensed as a psychologist. And one of her specialties is art therapy, very creative. And
Yeah, she's quite the artiste.
Yeah, and I say to all my staff members that you don't need to be copies of me. I want you to take your own unique talents and perspectives, and as long as you're within the framework of the mind map. So I have a couple of questions for you, Anna, because of course we do a lot of mind map training at the center. I'm wondering what it's like for you as a psychological assistant to be using this particular model versus some of the models that you used in other internships.
Oh, well, not just because you're my boss, but I found my home at the Psychological Healing Center. It's because the mind map serves as a structured guide in therapy, and the process helps psychoeducate clients on the process. It's a great healing tool, just knowing that there's a causal factor, and that's your model. It's a causal model for clients' problems. So I think they look at the model itself, and it's a tool because they get to see that it's a universal issue. It's not just themselves, and they're not alone.
Yeah.
I've worked extensively in school-based programs, and I've worked with a lot of children. And, even there, we had a very structured model. It was a little more difficult, I think, because when you extend it out to so many social systems in the school, it's much broader. And your mind map, it's not always an opportunity where, it's not easy to obtain, to find the clients that want to work on themselves and have the structured model that they can easily navigate through. I also love it because I can use all my theoretical orientations, everything I've applied in my schooling and my experience in the art therapy. It just fits so well and applies really well.
Yeah, thank you for that, because one of the things that I wanted to make sure of is that when people come on board the center, they're not feeling like, oh, I don't belong here. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist, or I don't belong here. I'm a Kleinian or a Freudian or whatever the orientation is. And so I was hoping that that the mind map would be inclusionary of the learning process. And I know that you have been working with, in particular, you're working with a young adolescent who is anorexic, and I'd like you to help the audience understand the dynamics of the family, of course, keeping confidential the identity of the person that you're working with. And so what do you find to be the injury, let's say the causal injury in the case of some of the people that you're working with currently?
I do have one case in mind, and
Okay.
she is an adolescent. I'll be as vague as possible, but in this situation, I find that she has a great upbringing. She has a great family. She has a great support system, but the causal factor is the imbalance of power and control in the system.
Okay.
So I think it's very common, especially with siblings, but there is an assumption in this family, as many families, that the first child, is an extension of the parental figure. So the intention to create a caring environment physically for the child overcompensates the environment that's for the emotional well-being. So it creates an imbalance within the system. You can imagine literally living the child's life for the child and not giving these opportunities and moments to learn from life experiences, and just kind of taking it kind of like, yeah, I've done that. No, that's happened to me. Don't worry. Is actually a lot different than inquiring, hey, what's your experience like? How do you feel about this? How do you want to deal with this issue? And I think it's a lot of parents in this in society where we just want to fix it for them quickly, but it's overlooked how much control you're actually taking from the child.
And do you think that when the child presents with this particular symptom, that they're trying to take back the control via this particular symptom?
Absolutely. I mean, this goes along with self-injury, cutting, burning.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many ways that children these days that I've seen directly in the school system, they just want the attention, parents say, but it's them actually having a physical evidence of their control. You count calories, for example, in this situation, and wow, I have intake of less calories, and look at my body shrink.
Right.
And it's very common, and it's a trend going on right now. Before they know it, they realize they have to go to an inpatient program, and they don't know why. And they realize that they didn't have an emotional kind of coping mechanism that they need to get out of situations, rather than getting these physical kind of evidences of gaining something in that interaction.
And what do you think about the pressure of social media? As I'm being asked quite frequently to comment on the impact of social media on plastic surgery.
Well, what about on just like magazines, TV? I mean, magazines
Absolutely.
are, radically airbrushed. Who can compete with an airbrushed photo?
That's a whole, right. No, that's a topic that is in definitely couple of our sessions. It's just psychoeducating, seeing their thoughts on what society is their baseline is on beauty. I feel like society is injecting poison, Dr. Judy, like you say. It's not just the mother infant. And now, if we're looking at the universal causal model, they're injecting poison into our children through magazines, walls, like tabloid ads, movies. Even my 5-year-old, 6-year-old sees it, and I used to present to hundreds of adolescents and trying to show them how like Photoshop and other graphic arts programs make them believe in something unreal.
We just did an article, we just did a show last week on teen plastic surgery. And even, Khloe Kardashian at age 17, I mean, she's not even an adult. Of course, her parents have had tremendous amounts of plastic surgery. She's got pouty lips now.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
She denied it for 8 months.
Right.
So people are competing against computer-generated images and other teens that have the means to perfect themselves beyond what is biologically considered normal, natural look. So now the normal, natural look is something that doesn't look like normal, natural look. And so they're expected now to look like that.
Well, even if Barbie was proportional in real life, she'd be over 7 feet tall.
Oh yeah, let's make a Barbie that's realistic.
Yeah, I think they tried that. I wonder how it's been selling for them.
I know I forgot. I'm so out of the loop with games, but I know that there's a really famous game. I saw this ad, this article on how they're actually making kind of images of how these heroes on these games would actually look if they were to the size of society, of what we really look like.
And that is the article that I commented on. It's in People magazine, and that's exactly the article they asked me to comment on.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's the one.
And I'm just wondering what you notice is the role of the father in all this. Have you picked up anything about what Dad is doing in this particular dynamics?
I have not yet had the opportunity to meet with all the family members. There's many in this case. In family therapy, I'm sure there are many cases where the entire system's not available, even in couple dyad. So they're not there. They're not all there to help recode the system. And sometimes you just have to work with what you have and try to cause some positive change in the system. And it works from that point, as far as it can go, is up to them. Up to the ones that are coming for therapy.
And all it takes is for one member of the system to shift, and then everything else shifts. It's like a seesaw. If one person...
Or dominoes.
Or dominoes. If every one person could change the course of the outcome of a family. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to the topic of either anorexia or bulimia that you want the audience to know about?
Yeah. One last thing is what you were commenting about, how our children and adolescents, we are all competing with this unreal expectation. And I would, if there are any listeners out there, they should really tend to turn that competition to themselves and see what potential they can reach on their own, trying to be the better person that they were than they were yesterday. So
that's beautiful. It's true. We don't look at it that way. We're competing with others out there, and what would be a great way to focus is to become better within ourselves and morph ourselves from the inside out, rather than have society dictate what we're supposed to morph into. So
right.
I really appreciate you calling in and being on the show, and
thank you for having me.
Just working together and developing the system. And of course, people listening, you've now met one of the psychological assistants on our staff, and we have various fee scales within which you can work. So please know that you can call, you can access us via teletherapy, Skype therapy, in-person therapy. We have offices in Sherman Oaks and Beverly Hills. And thank you very, very much, Anna.
Anna,
thank you
Fabulous.
for your brain and inviting me to.
My pleasure. Our pleasure.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
That was Anna, psychological assistant to Dr. Judy and the Psychological Healing Center, and you've tuned into Dr. Judy WTF, which is What the Freud. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and of course, Dr. Judy Rosenberg. We are talking tonight about anorexic and bulimia and eating disorders. And basically, anorexic is sort of an eating disorder which suffers fear of weight gain and avoids eating as a result. And bulimia is one where sufferers go through cycles of binging where they overeat a lot, and then immediately following by purging because their fear of gaining weight. And a lot of people that have bulimia, you can't tell because that's how they maintain their look, is that way. And anorexics are typically, it's a joke, but it's a little more prevalent. They look radically thin or underweight. And they have an obsession with food, weight, and thin body image, extreme fear of weight gain, compulsive exercise, depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and of course, body dysphoric.
And Walt, you had mentioned that at times anorexics will control their weight later on in years by becoming bulimic. It's a nice little trick, but it kind of doesn't work.
It
doesn't work on many levels. And I wanted you to get into some medical facts about teeth and electrolytes, and if that's at your fingertip access.
I was actually going to dive into causes first.
Yeah,
if you wanted to do that.
Sure.
What causes eating disorders? Since we're all about cause.
Yeah, we are
I
all
got
about cause.
8 things. We've mentioned first is genetics. And to be candid, there's obviously a lot of uncertainty about it, but the individuals who've had a family member who has had eating disorders are 7 to 12 times more likely to develop one themselves. So that's about as close as we can get to genetics.
Right, and we don't even know if that's genetic, because if there's a family member, then there's the blueprint, there's the role model, and there's nothing particularly etched in the genes about that other than the behavioral outcome, which, again, I look to the cause, because that person's mother might have damaged that person, and then her mother, father also became damaged and disconnected along the pathway, and this is multi-generational.
Absolutely it is. The next is temperament. Basically, they talk about genes, but if you're obsessively thinking about your weight, if you're a perfectionist, if you're sensitive to reward and punishment, it's sort of harm avoidance. If you're emotionally unstable or hypersensitive, if you're impulsive, especially bulimias are very impulsive because they're the ones that are going to go binge and purge, and you're rigid in your exercise persistence, even when you're really going overboard, then you might have a tendency to overeat.
And let's not forget the concept of the hole in the soul, right? The hole in the soul, which is caused by some sort of human disconnect, starting with mother-infant disconnect, and reminding you about attachment theory, John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth, their work studying children who developed anywhere from secure attachment, where they had all the emotional ingredients for mental health, such as eye contact and skin contact and breastfeeding and consistency, and a father that nourished the mother, and stability around them, and how many people get that? Not many. And then there are other people who develop anxious attachments because they
Yes,
don't have those
very
secure
anxiety.
pillars, right? And other people who develop avoidant attachment, and they shut down and they don't want to attach. And then there are all kinds of attachment styles that people develop. In the case of people who are binging and purging, there's an anxiety behind that. There's a need to fill the hole in the soul, the nurturing. And I like to look at symptoms as hieroglyphics or cues that point to the cause. So oftentimes when I do my work, I will look at these communications as such. They're communications. So somebody who's purging something, to me, says that they're feeling poison. They want to
They're trying to get rid of something.
Get rid of something.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, no surprise that many bulimics have been sexually abused.
Yes,
so
hugely.
It makes sense
Hugely.
that there's been a boundary violation, right? And they're trying to get that stuff out. And, Walt and I were talking about this, and I will bring it up, and I'd love to hear your opinion. And
yeah, call in if you'd like to. Our phone number is 323-843-2826, and it's not too late, 843-2826 in the 323 area code. So get on the couch with Dr. Judy.
I'm remembering a case that I worked with many years ago, and the young woman happened to be a prostitute, and she was sexually abused as a young woman, which is why many people who go into prostitution act out that way and devalue themselves. And she was a bulimic. She really did have the perfect body by all standards, and yet her self-esteem was really in the toilet. And she was also a candidate for plastic surgery. She kept morphing and morphing herself, and it never ended because, of course, she had that cracked lens of perception. So for her, the bulimia was getting out the filth, the dirt, the horrible feelings. And so there is a distinction between anorexia and bulimia, and oftentimes bulimics have more of a history of boundary violations, sexual abuse, whereas the anorexics are really trying to control. Sometimes the mother-daughter relationship is out of whack, and they're trying to control that situation.
Number 4 is trauma. I mean, we've talked about and most are women, and if you want to be a little more poignant, I mean, women got invaded or had sexual abuse, and they're trying to get rid of that invasion.
Right.
Physical or sexual abuse. Victims of the trauma often struggle with shame, guilt, body dissatisfaction, and feeling lack of a control.
Right.
The eating disorder may become an individual attempt to regain control and cope with these intense emotions. As many as 50% become from anorexic become bulimic. This is one that's big in cause. We always talk about cause. Coping skills deflects. Individuals with eating disorders often lack the skills to tolerate negative experiences. Behaviors as restricting, purging, binging, excessive exercise often develop in response to emotional pain, conflict, low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, stress, or trauma. In the absence of more positive coping skills, they try and maintain a dangerous cycle of emotional regimens and numbing the feelings.
Well, it makes sense, because if there isn't that soothing and that attunement and that emotional regulator who's supposed to be mom or primary caregiver, and if the primary doesn't soothe the baby, then the baby doesn't learn how to soothe him or herself. And so later on, he or she is left with inadequate coping skills. And so they're going to have to fill in that gap and the hole in the soul with these dysfunctional coping skills, which function on some level, but hurt the person on the other level. And that's the sad thing about symptoms, is that they're really designed, these defense mechanisms are designed to help us cope, but ultimately they break down. Why do they break down? Because they don't really reach the the piece of the human being's system that speaks to empathy, containment, soothing, and being connected. And so they just end up not working after
They don't.
many months or years.
The next, as we've talked about already, is social media. The expectation that, thin is really where it's at, competing with photoshopped photos, whether it be in a video game or, actors and actresses are tremendous in ballets, and people in gymnastics are unbelievably under amount of pressure to maintain their stuff. But the one is dieting. If you guys want to realize this, the first 3 letters of the word diet is die. And
never thought about that.
Never?
Never noticed that.
Yes, and 9.5 people who actually go on a diet gain out of 10, 9.5, mind you, gain the weight they've lost back within 5 years. It's a $60 billion industry is spent every year on diets and weight loss, and it has really a 95 to 98% success failure rate. It's just not very successful. They're intensifying the feelings of guilt and shame around food, which may ultimately contribute to a cycle of restricting, purging, binging, and excessive exercise. And it's just crazy in terms of that's what's causing our challenges.
Yeah, and it forms that loop, doesn't it? There's
Yes.
the counting the calories, and then there's the binging, and then there's the purging.
Well, they get
and
guilty.
then
They power down all this stuff, and then they feel guilty about gaining, eating us all. I mean, there was one story, I can't find it. For example, if a friend of yours buys you like a box of donuts, and before they wake up in the morning, you have eaten the whole box. Now you have to rush to the store or a donut shop and buy a new box of donuts to hide the fact that you ate the entire box yourself.
Oh, wow. So
before they get up to realize, oh my gosh, where'd all the donuts go?
Right, and then
Rats came in, and there was really big rats that came in and ate the donuts.
Right, and so now it sort of works on your integrity also, and now you start lying. And then what about the fact that after throwing up, you smell like vomit?
Right, smell like vomit.
And then you've got to use extra
You're right.
mouthwash
And that goofs up your
toothpaste
esophagus. It goofs up the enamel on your teeth. They talked about some that binge and purge so much, they have to go to multiple grocery stores. Because if you buy all the food that you're consuming and purging at one store, the clerk's going to look at you like, is this just for you? So they actually go to different stores and buy a little bit of food at each store, thereby hiding the fact that it's all theirs and they're all going to consume it and binge it and purge it themselves.
So it becomes a lifestyle.
It becomes a ritual and a lifestyle. Okay, I mean, it's just, it's crazy stuff.
And watch the electrolytic balance.
And the electrolytes are just totally thrashed, which then affects your heart. And people actually, and the potassium, and you get heart attacks, and you can die. The mortality rate is absolutely awful. I wanted to address a little bit here, since we're doing a cause, in signs that you just might be a healthy eater. You might think, I'm doing okay. This isn't for me, or this isn't me. So I just wanted to touch on those for a few, and there's actually 10 of them. You refuse to eat. If you have anorexic and you distorted body image and fear of gaining weight, you're not going to eat. Overweight is when they are emancipated, overeat. Starving themselves to the point of death. And, of course, this is very dangerous.
That's funny.
Yeah, think?
You think starving yourself to the point of death, I think that's kind of dangerous.
Or the other so you can starve yourself to the point of death, or you can binge and eat repeatedly. Maybe an attempt to fill an emotional void or avoid life stresses, other deep-seated psychological challenges in each. You eat more than you need to.
And I just want to mention that a lot of these kinds of behaviors, when exposed to therapy and what we at the Psychological Healing Center do, which is help the people with truth conversations and really tell the truth about what's bothering them. A lot of what's really bothering them is not politically correct, and they don't want to talk about it. And oftentimes therapists and therapies and also inpatient facilities, they don't like to touch on the cause because nobody wants to talk about the fact that father, mother created a blueprint that hurt the child. And it's a very touchy subject for me presenting to the patient also, because when we talk about cause, we're not talking about blame. We're not talking about blaming the parent or shaming the parent. We are saying that when we disconnect from our infants, from our children, unbeknownst to us even, we have an impact on that human being's life. And so it behooves us to study attachment theory and know how to create a healthy human psyche. And then if we haven't created a healthy human psyche, it behooves us to get in treatment and help the child reverse the effects, or for the child to reverse the effects through therapy if mom and dad are not willing to come, by literally, instead of purging the food, they purge the negative emotions, and we reprocess the negative emotions so they don't get stuck in the body.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because they can't recognize hunger as one of the symptoms, meaning there is a difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger. Eat according to the clock on the wall, not your body clock. You know, you might be emotionally hungry, and as a result, you're using food as a substitute. I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Or you eat alone because of shame. Shame is another eating disorder sign, unhealthy eating about themselves. They worry that others are watching them and judging what they're eating, so they avoid all social situations altogether and eat by themselves. Or you eat differently. In other words, you eat and you kind of push the food around your plate, and you don't eat a whole lot, or you cut the food in real tiny bites when you're with people, and when you're without them, you eat differently.
But it's almost like, how we talk about the cracked lens of perception, and the way that we see the world through the eyes of the injured child warps the way in which we see ourselves and everybody around us. It's sort of like these symptoms warp the behaviors of the person. So everything's now out of whack. Like you were saying, now the person has to replace the donuts, and now the person has to go to 2 markets or 3 markets and make sure that they don't encounter the same checkout clerk. Now the person has to brush their teeth to make sure they don't smell badly. Now the person has to wear clothing to hide the fact that they've lost another 10 pounds. So it just goes on and on and on.
Or for example,
you
you binge and purge. There's your knuckles and your hands are kind of banged up because you're causing yourself to put your fingers down your throat so you can throw up.
Right. And then when the gag response, right, then you pull your hand out and your knuckles get hurt, and you scrape your teeth along it's just a whole big chaotic mess.
43% of women 51 and older said they were satisfied with their bodies, and middle-aged women are dealing a lot with aging parents, empty nests, menopause, and they don't feel like they have a lot of control over a lot of their life. But they think they're rapidly changing life. But they think counting calories and binging and purging might assist them in having what they feel will help them look better with their negative body image, as well as having some control over something in their life.
And bottom line, and we've definitely talked about this in the past, everybody wants to be loved.
Yes.
And in people's eyes, if you're beautiful, if you're thin, if you've got great body proportion, then you're going to have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, wife, lover, and you're going to be loved. So that whole association drives people toward these kinds of behaviors as well.
And if you're food obsessed, you just might have an eating disorder. If you have fluctuations in your weight, there might be a challenge.
Years ago when I first started counseling, I worked at the Schick Center. Most of you don't know what that is, but it was a center for stopping smoking and weight control, and we used to do aversion therapy on the overeaters and the smokers. And with the overeaters, what we would do is we'd have them bring in their favorite, quote, foods, their French fries and their Coke and their donuts, and we'd have them do all kinds of disgusting things with that food and create aversions, including blowing fish oil scent up their nose while they were chewing on their donuts. So at the end of that road, they would see their donut and throw up, or see their ice cream and want to throw up. And that brought some results, not long-lasting results, because you can't modify behaviors and not look to the cause. Because if you don't dismantle the cause, then these behaviors will come back.
They'll
over
continue.
time.
They'll
Right.
continue. What I want to do is close with this, and then we're going to do our song. Is some of the physical problems and symptoms of going binging, purging, bulimia and anorexic. Your mental functioning is impacted. You feel dull, listless. You can't focus. Your heart gets really, really stressed out. I mean, it just goes on the list of that regard. Your bones are impacted. Your mouth, in terms of all the stuff that all the acids that come up from your stomach are unhinged. You may vomit blood and other things when you vomit. Your whole endocrine system is impacted. And of course your stomach swells. You may have a gastric rupture. Your eyes are also sometimes bloodshot because of the pressure that's coming in. You're causing your body to expel all this stuff that you've got in your body. Your intestines are impacted. And, then there's a laxative abuse on that regard. Laxatives only help about 10%. And even binging and purging, in terms of purging what you've eaten, you really only are getting rid of 50% of the calories, because your body is pretty doggone efficient in processing the food you consume. And the minute it hits your mouth, it is starting to be digested. So people have this fallacy that, take a water pill, it's going to help them lose weight. No, it's going to help them lose water. And whatnot. It's just it's a lot of misinformation and figure out what's going on.
I know it's time to shrink the tune, so I'll include my comment in the shrinking the tune.
Okay. And we are going to we have a song we're going to shrink. It's entitled "Theory of a Dead Man," as the name of the group, and the song is called "World War Me." Whoa, 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 this is the World War Me. I never find peace. I'm the only enemy. I'm the king of doubt. I fight it out all on the inside. I'm the poster child of denial. There's nothing I can't hide. I'm punching holes in walls because I let it build up way too long. Sabotage. Eating everything I've had, and now I'm seeing red. There's no one else to blame but the voices in my head.
So this is an inside job, and we are our worst enemies. In the case of anorexia and bulimia, there's not any peace, and so they're denying the truth. They're denying their self-expression, and so they're showing it all through the symptoms. And they've obviously let it build up for so long that they're sabotaging.
Yep.
They're trying to control, but they end up obviously sabotaging themselves, and there's no one else to blame.
Well, at least they're taking responsibility. And the chorus, whoa, this is the World War Me. I never find peace. I look in the mirror. I hate what I've become, because I'm only the casualty from damage that I've done. I'm the only enemy in the World War Me.
Right, and what's missing from this piece is that there's no acknowledgement that we are not the cause of part one of our lives. And
No,
we're
and
not the cause of injuring ourselves. So, this person is full of guilt and shame and blame. And, of course, they look into the mirror, and there's that cracked lens of perception, and they hate themselves.
I know you tried to show me the light. I feed on the darkness. I've lost control. I'm down in a hole. I'm broken and helpless. The noose is getting tight, so tight, will I make it through the night? It's time to surrender myself and crawl out of this hell. The battle's in my head. There's nobody else.
Well, they would love to crawl out of the darkness, but instead they take control of the darkness, and this is how they take control, by counting the calories and binging and purging. But there's definitely a reference to this hole in the soul, right?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
In the chorus, this is World War Me. I've never find peace. I look into the mirror. I hate what I've become, because I'm the only casualty from the damage that I've done. I'm the only enemy in World War Me. How do you run away when you're the enemy, knowing there's no way out? Nothing's going to save me now.
Right, and one of the thoughts that I had earlier is that when we healthfully develop, we ingest and we digest and we manifest, but when we've been violated and there's no peace and there's no safety around us, what we don't want to do is we don't want to ingest anything, right? So there's your
Is that literally or figuratively here, doctor?
Literally and figuratively, we draw that boundary that nothing coming in is of any good, especially if we've been violated sexually. That's not good. So then we keep it all out, but then we starve to death.
And then lastly, into the chorus, this is World War Me. I never will be free. This is World War Me. I will never find peace. I look in the mirror. I hate what I've become because I'm the only casualty from damage that I've done. I'm the enemy in World War Me.
Right, and this person has directed all the anger inward, right?
Yes, they have.
The anger inward, and what we at the Psychological Healing Center do is don't implode, don't explode,
but unload.
Thank you.
You so much.
And recode.
Oh, there we go. I
got a new one. Don't unload, don't explode, don't implode, unload, and recode the past and
think like a shrink.
Decode the past and recode the future.
And think like a shrink. And that's a song by Theory of a Dead Man, and we're going to play it now as we close out, and the song is entitled World War Me. And you've been listening to Dr. Judy, WTF. We're here every Thursday at the UBN Radio Network. I'm your host, Walt Lust. You can pull us on Stitcher and iTunes. You can watch us on YouTube as well. We have almost all the shows on YouTube. Go over to Facebook and like us. We really appreciate that while you're watching us on YouTube. And if you want to write us for any reason, get information from notes from our show, or have ideas of a show you want us to do, write us at info@DrJudyWTF. So until next time, take care, everyone. Thanks for listening and watching, and God bless. Gotta push the right button. There we go.
Welcome to the panic room. Running out of air, ain't seen the light of day, living life scared, so I hide myself away. Chaos all around, be quiet, just be calm. I'm better off alone, like I have been all along. I don't know why, but I'm trapped inside. Welcome to the panic room. It's my dark place. Lock myself away from you, and I can't escape when you've got nothing to lose. Paranoia sets in, and no matter what you do, I'm never gonna let you in. Panic, panic. Welcome to the panic room.